free app. Of course, the app for Androids. Yes, I'm an Android kind of guy. And the app for Apples. You Apple people out there, that's okay. You have got my condolences. That's right. I am an Android man. At least that's what Mama T tells me. Thank you, Mama T, for watching us here. We're live. We're ready to do this, and we got a great show lined up because we're talking about something that is just a beautiful, beautiful, wonderful thing to talk about, because history will repeat itself if we don't keep you up to tune in what's happening. America is the greatest country the world has ever created, historically, from the past to the present and to the future. It never will be any better than living in America. So goes America, so goes the world. And our boys and girls, they fought hard to make this country and shed their blood for us. But there were also other people around the world that shed their blood and fought very hard for their independence and their liberties and their freedoms. And Europe was really something that was besieged very hard by World War II. Just a real quick little piece of history. Hitler took over in the 30s, and he absolutely destroyed so many lives in Europe. And one of the groups of people that were most affected by Hitler and his atrocities and his absolutely terrible, terrible, satanic things that he did to people were the people of the Jewish faith. And we're going to be talking about Holocaust issues today. In fact, we're going to be looking into a gentleman by the name of Kalman Aaron and the story about Kalman Aaron. And it's called Into the Light, a book that was written about him not too far ago. This guy's he's a genius. He's a genius artist. And we've got two special guests in the studio today. Good to have you along from left to right, camera right, if you're looking at it. We got the great, and all I have to say, the #1 PR guy in the world, Mr. Ed Losey. Thank you, Ed, for checking in.
Thank you, folks. Please be seated.
And he's got a bit of the Irish in you today. What are you doing? You going to ride a horse or something?
Actually, I'm playing polo.
Really?
Playing polo on Saturday. Steve and I are playing polo in Santa Barbara. We'll talk to you about that later.
That'll be
fun.
fun.
Had to do a little training today.
Right, the one alongside the freeway there on the right-hand side, the polo grounds right there?
Carpinteria.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm glad you brought in Stephen C. Barber. Stephen is like documentary king. He's done so many documentaries, and he's a great filmmaker and a great storyteller. And it's good to have you along in to talk about this very important issue in human history. But this story we're about to tell that nobody has ever heard before. Stephen, good to have you along with us. All right, thank you very much.
Good to be here. Thank you, man.
Yes.
Thanks
And we can't forget about the beautiful lady taking pictures to the left of us. Thank you very much. And she's got the great little doggy right there. So we're going to talk in the doggy and the lady later, okay? Because you can't talk to the doggy and the lady right now because they'll just steal the show. What can I tell you? But let's talk about kind of what's going on here historically, because there's a lot of significance as what's happening in the planet Earth today as to what happened 75 plus years ago in terms of how the countries are starting to shape up and the things that are happening and the evilness. The evilness that's out there in the planet right now. And we're talking about Europe and, of course, the Holocaust, but we're starting to see a lot of the evil today. So history can repeat itself if we aren't too careful.
Absolutely, and that's why, we need to tell this story. I was really fortunate. I go to a New Year's Eve party every single year, and Mr. Losey attends as well, and he saw me, and we kind of started chatting, and he knew that I had just finished another movie called Never Surrender with Josh Brolin. And he said, you do a lot of World War II stuff. I've got a great story. And I'm like, Ed, everybody tells me they have a great story, all right?
Right.
And so I kind of had contempt prior to investigation. And I said, go ahead, tell it to me. And he said, I met this guy, Kalman Aaron. I used to be his publicist. This guy survived 7 Nazi death camps with a pencil. And I was like, whoa,
wow.
I'm in. He's like, I'm in.
That's intriguing right there to say it with a pencil.
I'm like, what are you talking about? So then Ed kind of told me the whole story about how this guy went from camp to camp to camp as an artist, and he drew the guards, and he drew the guards' girlfriends, and he drew the commandants, and that's how he survived this, couple of years. I guess, was it, how many years, Ed? 2 or 3 years?
4.
4 years in these camps. And what's great about this story is that we've seen every other Holocaust movie has always shown just complete, terrifying, satanic,
right.
Horrificness.
Right.
This is going to have a juxtaposition to that. This is actually, he was treated okay. He was treated, Kalman was treated humanely because they respected his artwork and they needed to keep him healthy so he could do great portraits. So this will be the first Holocaust story, I think, to my knowledge, that'll actually show a Jewish person being treated okay. Not, he wasn't, he didn't get a goose down bed, but he did have a place to sleep and he did have food. And so that's what's interesting about it.
But he did live the tragedies of that time, because his parents were completely killed. His family was destroyed. All the friends and neighbors that he grew up with in Latvia were completely destroyed. This guy is really an interesting guy because he really is a genius, Ed. I mean, the guy started painting when he was 3. He sold his first paintings out when he was 7. He painted for the then Prime Minister of Latvia at that time when he was 12 or 13 or 14. I mean, this guy is really a genius at what he does. How did you find him?
I was referred to him by Cheryl Kane, who is an author who's been on your show, that did the OJ book. But, Coleman Aaron at 13 won a national contest. So he painted the president of Latvia, and his painting wound up to be the postage stamp. So there's millions of people every day looking at his painting. And so he was this child prodigy star in a very good family, in a very precious lifestyle. Right? And then the Germans came in, they invaded. And with the Sonderkommando groups, behind the army groups, their sole job was to round up and murder the Jews, as many as they could. And his family was victim to that. They put him in a work group because he was tall for his age, and we were going to put him in slave labor, which was what they were going to do with him, which they did. Mm-hmm. So that's a terrific story that he told me the first time he told me. He's on this line to be processed in the first camp, and he is like, as an artist, he's drawing everything. He's like Tourette syndrome with a pencil. He's always drawing everything, and he's drawing on a piece of cardboard that he found waiting in line to be processed, meaning to be killed. Right? And he feels this incredible pain. He's being beaten by rubber hoses from the back and on the back of his legs, and he goes down. And they're like, he wakes up, and the guard is looking at what he was drawing on. He thought he was maybe sending a note over the fence, to tell people what's going on. And the guard looks at a surrealistic drawing of himself, almost like a photograph.
Wow.
Because he's surrealistic. And he yanks him off the line and says, This is for my wife. Now do one for my girlfriend.
In that accent, just like that, in English.
Yes. I wonder if he's going to do that when he rides polo. Can you, please? But really, this guy to be able to more than draw that kind of picture under that kind of stressful condition, being a young man at the time. Heart pounding, the sweat beating, everything happening, and yet he's able to do this. That's a sign of absolute knowledge coming from God. I mean, that's just coming through you. And that had to be impressive to you.
Well, the irony, too, is that he graduated as a prodigy from the Vienna School of Art, where Hitler was turned down 3 times.
Isn't that an amazing thing?
At the same time.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, Hitler actually, Hitler, it was 10 years earlier.
Right.
But Hitler had been turned down 3 different occasions where he came in as a prodigy. So and he ends up, because of Hitler, we're working his art throughout the Holocaust through 4 years.
And if I'm not mistaken, American GIs who liberated him, apparently got together and helped get him into the school, paid for tuition and American GIs that were occupied.
There are stories out there when you do research, or you go to like Washington, D.C., you go to the Holocaust Museum there in Washington, D.C. I remember when I went through there, my son was 10 years old. I on a 10-year trip to Washington, D.C. with the elementary schools, one of the places we wanted to see was the Holocaust Museum. And we were walking through there, and they had this one exhibit to the left, and this was the exhibit about children and the murdering of children. And how they did that. I couldn't get through it. I walked about 20 steps in and picked my son up and walked through it fast. And he said, "Daddy, what's wrong?" I said, "There's some very bad people in the world, and it affects me because I don't like bad people." And that's what I said. And later on, we had a discussion. But the point is, there were prodigies like this throughout all the concentration camps, about 1,000 concentration. People don't realize how many concentration camps were in all the German territory that they were in. There were a lot of concentration camps, but there were a lot of prodigies like this. But this is and correct me if I'm wrong, this is one of the very first stories that's going to come out about a kid who was able to save his life with his ability.
Common had to use his wits, and he tells us in the story, which we're going to bring to the screen, on how you have to survive in these camps, you have to be invisible and to work without bringing yourself, being in the right place at the right time, and to blend in. And at the same time, because of his talent, he lived longer than the people that he ride with. They were all put to death. And so each death camp that he went to, he had to start all over again with his talents and let it be known what he was doing. And of course, he, was a terrific guy and business sense. And, they say, oh, Jews are good with money and good with it. Well, they are. And he goes to the tormentors, well, I can draw much better with a piece of cheese or some bread. And so they want him to start drawing.
Again, in that accent, right?
Yeah, in the same exact accent.
Okay,
Yeah,
I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah. So it was fascinating how he had to use his wits and his bargaining power to stay alive.
How does that affect you, Stephen, when you get a topic matter that is deep and rich like this and very emotionally filled? How does that affect you in terms of your cinematography and putting that together and bringing that out in that moment that you have to bring it out in? How do you do that?
Well, I want to tell it differently because we've all seen, there was a movie last year called Saul, which won the Oscar for Best Foreign Film, and I couldn't get through it. It was about a guy that scrubbed the death camps after the showers, and I was like, man, I know what happened. Okay, so the great thing about my company, our company, Vanilla Fire Productions, is that we try to tell stories in a completely different light. In this particular case, pun intended, into the light,
right?
Which is the name of the film.
Sure.
And if you look behind me, you'll see a poster that was put together by just a genius graphic artist named David Schwartz. David, believe it or not, David used to open for Prince. He's a white Jewish kid that opened for Prince rapping, and the kid's unbelievably talented. He opened for Prince for 7 years.
Oh boy!
And he took Prince a $60 million deal, and Prince turned it down, and he said, "I'm done. I'm out." So he came to Hollywood, and he became this incredible. He already had the talent, and he's just this really subdued guy. And I told him, I said, "Listen, I want to tell this story about this guy, but I don't want it to be dark. I mean, every Holocaust poster you've ever seen, every movie you've ever seen, it's dark. It's full of death. I want this to have some sort of substance, and I want people to feel good about it if we can." And he said, "Give me a day." And that's what you're looking at behind us. So he started with the darkness, and we come into the light at the very top. And we've been speaking to Richard Dreyfuss. We actually got some pictures with Richard in the poster.
Oh, terrific.
He's interested in narrating.
Yeah.
Ed's reached out to John Voight. And we are right now in the middle of a fundraising campaign. And I would encourage everybody to go to my website,
please do.
vanillafire.com, and also kalmanaron.com, which is KALMANARON.com. And anyone who's interested in participating in this project, feel free to reach out to us because this isn't about making money. We want to get enough money to make the film and get it and run it for Oscar. I've been really fortunate. I've run 3 films for Oscar. 3 have made it to the Oscar shortlist. I can say without 100%, we can get the nomination here. That's how good this story is. Not because I'm some great filmmaker,
but you are a great filmmaker.
I'm a good storyteller. I'm surrounded by some really genius people that make me look a lot better than
humble.
I am.
You're being
But it's
humble.
true.
Thank you.
Yeah, like right here. But it's really important to tell a positive story about the Holocaust. And I just have to differ with you just a little bit because
Please.
And I get this a lot. People are like, well, there's all this death and destruction, the evil. You know what? Only because we have Snapchat and Facebook and all that crap, because we get instantaneous news.
Right.
The amount of evil that's on this planet is 1/1000th what it was during World War II. 60 million people died in 4 years. There's nothing like that now.
No.
Not even close.
Right.
We lost 4,000 people in Iraq.
Sure.
Americans. Now, the more Iraqis died. But I'm just saying, this is actually the most peaceful time. I know it's hard for people to imagine that. This is the most peaceful time
that's a valid point.
ever been on the planet.
Yeah, that's a very valid point.
And I like to think we're getting better. But the only way to get better is we cannot forget how bad we've been. And we really need – and it's, the power of film we did a movie called Return to Tarawa, which was about a 90-year-old veteran that saw 10,000 people die on the beachheads of one of the first full frontal amphibious.
Right.
Because we made this movie, I don't need to get into all the details, it was so powerful that it moved a Marine to contact his legislator and get legislation passed to go back and look for some of these Marines that never made it home.
Wow.
That is the power of film. And in 8 years, over 50 sets of remains have come home.
Just because of that.
Because we made this movie. Now, I mean, I didn't even know that it was happening until
Right.
2 or 3 years after the movie came out. When we tell this story into the light, it's going to have some sort of gigantic magical effect. I don't know what that effect will be, but I can tell you it'll be real positive.
Now, Coleman has some great artwork. We're gonna play a little something that we pulled off of YouTube. It's him talking. It was done a couple of years ago, and it's got some of his artwork that's built into it. And he talks about some of the experiences he had being a kid growing through this process. So let's get ready to play that in just a second. Just wanted to agree with you on that. You know, with the technology we have today, what sells in news? Bad news. Good news doesn't sell. Ever sells.
If it bleeds, it leads, baby.
That's right. So you're right in that respect. I mean, all of our technology is
Can
directed.
you imagine if the American troops had Snapchat during the Battle of the Bulge?
Oh, come
I mean,
on.
come on.
Come on.
You'd be seeing Nazis with their heads cut off. You'd
Oh
be seeing
yeah!
atrocities.
Can you imagine Patton having that?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, come on, really?
Exactly. Yeah.
So you're right in that respect. But still, the interesting aspect of how you're twisting the story and looking at it from his point of view and his artistry, I think, is really exciting because we've never had the opportunity to learn about somebody who was such a genius in what he does and how he's able to prevail through it and yet still be creative and live somewhat of a happy life.
The unique thing about this story is we've made 6 movies, except for one of our guys. Everybody's been deceased. The last movie we did, Never Surrender, about the last cavalry charge.
This guy's still alive.
This guy's alive.
I like
and
that.
You know what? He's beautiful. And we just had dinner with him last week, and he's still lucid, and he's still passionate, he's a beautiful soul. So we really want to get this story made before he passes.
And what does he say about your accent? Does he like it?
He taught me exactly what to say.
Okay.
Yeah, we shot all of his interviews first.
Yeah.
Just in case.
Yeah,
just
that's
in case.
very smart.
Yeah, we literally, if he did pass today, we have plenty. We have
material.
plenty of material. But it would be such an honor to be able to walk him into the theater, to let him see his story on the big screen, which I think we can do. Like I said, it's just all about finding the dough. You know?
Give the website where people can contribute and help out.
www.vanillafire.com is the best place to reach me if you're interested in being part of the film. And, of course, more information on Coleman is colemanaaron.com, which is KALMAN, Aaron, ARON.com. And also the Jewish Journal. If you just Google his name in the Jewish Journal, we just got him on the front page.
This is terrific.
Of the Jewish Journal. I don't know. Can you see it?
Man, he's the most handsome 90. He's the most handsome 90-year-old looking guy I've ever seen.
Yeah, this is a self-portrait he did of himself. I think in his 30s.
Yeah, he's a lot younger.
I was going to say, my goodness, I want what he has.
And this is, this was
he still walks around.
This was a product of passion because I was on a plane going back to the GI.
How do you draw yourself? How can you do that?
Well, I didn't, and this is another thing. I didn't do this. What I did is I contacted the Jewish Journal. I wrote a story.
Right.
And I contacted the Jewish Journal. I said, hey, I got this great story about this great guy. And the editor called me back right away. He goes, it's a great story. He goes, you're a really shitty writer. You're not a good writer. That's what he said to me. He said, would you mind if I came out and had one of my people do it? He goes, I've got a guy that actually does survivor stories. I said, you know what? I'm a good writer, but that's fine. Whatever you say, pal. But my job was to get his attention and hook him, which I did. Then about a week later, they called me up and said, would you mind if we put him on the front cover? And, of course, so that was just my passion that made that happen. But I didn't make this happen. This is much more – what happened is 6 or 7 people, once they realized who this guy was, said, hey, they bumped. You know how many people want to be on the front page of the Jewish Journal?
Come on.
They have 100 stories ready to go.
Yeah.
But they bumped 100 stories to put his on. So it was pretty – we got that done, really, really, really quickly.
They were excited that this was going to be made into a film.
Oh, it's exciting.
He's well known in the Jewish community.
Well, he's well known in Hollywood.
He's been in the Jewish Journal, but when they found out that there's going to be a motion picture, everything went because this is a town of motion pictures.
Just some of the names of the people that he has drawn and painted. I mean, Ronald Reagan, President Reagan,
Yeah.
Henry Miller.
Well, Reagan sat for him.
Andre Previn.
Yeah.
I mean, and the list goes on and
Henry
on.
Miller was his pal, the great
Right.
author Henry Miller, and they hung out together. And that's another thing: the darkness, coming from the darkness of the death and destruction and the torture of the camps, and then to draw those items and those pieces when he was liberated, to bring that back to memory. He wanted a record of it.
Let me see that the poster you had there in the smaller form. I want to kind of show this a little bit if we can. And it's really cool because we're going to show off the bigger poster we have on the wall behind us. But
And this is the great David Schwartz.
The David Schwartz.
Who happens to be Jewish. Never even occurred to me.
Oh, yes.
With a
Did
name
you
like
never
Schwartz?
see the Mel Brooks movie, Spaceballs? Come on.
I did. The
Schwartz
Schwartz be with you. That's good. I got this. Yeah.
So this is really cool. And you said that this gentleman did this in one day.
One day.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
This artist right here. Up in this corner, you have a portrait of Coleman Aaron, and then you have the concentration camp with the prisoners.
And the swastika's on the
and
left-hand
the
side.
swastika's up here. You
And it's a
really
blue, beautiful sky.
We'll see it when we pull down the bigger poster. It's actually, that's some significance, some subtlety there with the blue sky. Absolutely.
Well, like I said,
Railroad tracks.
I just give people my ideas, and then they take them to much higher levels.
And you notice the font Into the Light, it's a brush stroke.
Yeah, that's right. It really is. So we'll show off the bigger poster because this doesn't give it justice.
And he came from the darkness. I was explaining that.
Yeah.
And now he's in the late 40s. The war is over. He winds up getting into Europe, into Paris. He's hanging out with Picassos and Hemingways. He's wearing his French beret. He's like, okay, his life is coming back. Then, 1949, he goes directly to Beverly Hills, the lightest, most beautiful spot in the world. Can you imagine what it was like here in 1949?
I only see pictures. It's
like,
unbelievable.
It was a Garden of Eden.
Oh, sure. Not what I drove through today on the way here, let me tell you.
Well, what's interesting, too, is we reached out to Norman Lear, and I'm one of those guys, if you have a lot of money, I will ask you for some of your money. And that's what I did with Norman. Norman gave me $10,000 for a movie about 10 years ago. And I reached out to him, and he's like, Steve, I remember you. He goes, if you don't mind, I have no trouble meeting him, which was even better. So we spent 3 hours. We got we shot it for 3. So we basically have a whole documentary of Norman Lear.
Now he's one of the producers.
He's one of our producers.
He joined the team.
And he wrote us a check, and it was a good check, and he's a really decent guy. And I should call the movie Juxtaposition,
right?
Because while he was in a camp in Latvia, in a death camp, Norman Lear was in a B-17 dropping bombs on him.
Oh, wow. Is that
in the middle of it?
My
They
goodness.
both started crying. These were two men that were exactly the same age that both came to Beverly Hills at the same time. Both had really prominent careers.
Wow.
And it was like two brothers getting together. And when Norman realized that he dropped bombs on him and almost killed him. But I told Norman, I said, not even Norman Lear can kill Coleman Aaron.
No one seems to be able to
Nazis can't kill him.
Take this guy
Norman
out.
can't kill him.
This guy ought to join SEAL Team 6.
He's got a wife right now that might kill him, but that's a whole other documentary.
Yeah, well, this guy's a studly guy. I mean, you were telling me, Ed, that a few years ago he'd be hanging out down in Beverly Hills, walking down the street to his famous cafe.
Oh yeah,
that he'd love to go to.
We did a big art show for him in his 3-story apartment / studio in Beverly Hills, where he's been for many, many, many years. And we had like the elites coming in there,
right,
and buying paintings and meeting him.
Wow!
And it segued a few years later into this incredible book, which Steve's company bought the rights for, which is what this movie's based on. So it's a best-selling coffee table book turned into a movie. This thing's going to be a big hit. One of the reasons Steve brought us into is that we're experienced Oscar nomination campaigners that work behind the scenes to get attention by the Academy members, which is
Ed's being very humble. But Ed,
he is.
Ed works 100 hours a week. He's the first.
Best.
Well, he's the first person in this town that has really. I mean, I have to do everything with my beautiful wife Tamara, who works. We're going to put her on camera here in a minute, but it's just her and I. And Ed has literally probably got a couple 100 hours into this already. I mean, at least. And this is the first time. So I actually want to be successful for Ed because he's the first person to actually bring me a story, which was a story.
Right.
That never happens. People are like, oh, I got a story. Nobody ever does.
Yes.
Ed had the story.
Right.
But Ed and I also had known each other for 20 years. It wasn't like we just I mean, he had seen my work, and I mean, it wasn't like he just brought this. He could have brought this to me 12 years ago, but he didn't. He waited.
Timing.
Yeah, so it worked out really well.
Yeah, well, network and friendship and relationship is very important.
I didn't say he was my friend, but yeah.
Also, Michael Moore turned it down.
Yeah, right.
Oh, gee.
Michael Moore.
Thanks, Michael Moore.
Please.
All right, let's play. Lee, if we can play that, that'd be
That's what
great.
I get for building him up.
This is a Coleman Aaron on a quick little interview piece, and we get to see some of his artwork that he did during the time of his life when he was in the concentration camp and stuff like that, maybe a little time after. So go ahead and play that if you can. Thanks.
My father was taken out. My mother was not taken out, but pretending they were
Switch out with
taking
me?
him,
You want to interview Tamara?
him and my uncle, to work, to do a job for the Germans, which is obvious potential. My father never came back. My uncle came back. It's the most horror story you can imagine. And he was there for a few days, and then they finally came back. They let him go for some reason. Then they pulled him out.
Okay, so that is that was an interview that was done a few years ago, and it was just some pieces of Coleman Aaron, and just to give you a little taste of the man, I think he's a little younger there than he is now.
Yeah, that was 20 years ago.
About 20 years ago.
The show, the official show to Spielberg, about 7,000 of the Holocaust survivors came forward that never talked before. And so on our film, he's going to be discussing things he never talked before, never talked at all about.
You see, that's really the unique thing about this. We're going to hear a point of view, like Stephen was saying earlier, that we've never experienced before in a film like this or a presentation of this nature. So I think folks are going to get a completely different understanding from his point of view, where he was at his life and how it affected him and how he dealt with it.
You know what else we're going to do? We're going to all 6 of the concentration camps that he survived in, and we're going to interview local citizens that were still there, and we're going to find some of the tormentors who we understand are doing interviews.
Get out of
here.
here.
People that tortured and killed the Jews. They're Latvians, okay, and they were recruited by the Nazis. That's how they work. The Germans didn't do the dirty work. They came in and recruited. And so there's some of them still there. We're going to get to them.
I'd love to be there at that time. I tell you what. Jesse T would like to be there. Yeah, on the powervoices.com and ABTV Live and the Digital Broadcasting TV Network. Good to have you here. Facebook.com/Jesse Torrero and YouTube Power Voices, YouTube Jesse Torrero. Live stream, Instagram. We're everywhere on the air and everywhere from the community to the world. Good to have you along with us. We're talking about a terrific gentleman, Coleman Aaron, and his story. It's called Into the Light, a terrific documentary that I believe is in pre-production or production right now. They're raising funds for it. We'll get how you can get involved in this. I think it's really important that we tell this story because it's from a point of view from a young child, a young man who was a great artist, a genius. His career has been something that is magnificent, and we get to see that point of view, which is exciting. Also, bringing on right now somebody who's a lot prettier than everybody in this room. I got to tell you that much. I mean, I'm glad you're close to me and not our Irish person back there. You know, of course, I do love you, Ed. I do. Yeah, top afternoon to you. Yes.
I'm British.
Oh yes. Oh yes, you're British. Yeah. Yes. So
Not
Tamara Henry. Yes, Tamara Henry.
Jesse, thank you so much for having me on the show
She's
today.
co-producing, and she's got beautiful green eyes, which are beautiful, and she's a terrific, talented person, and she's jumped into this thing full speed ahead. What inspired you to really want to get involved in this? Where did it touch your heart, or what was the inspiration behind you saying, man, I want to do that?
Mm-hmm. Well, definitely, Into the Light is, the part that I like about it is the art and the psychology. The lady who put together this book, Susan McGee, we got to go to her house and have a wonderful dinner. And, she's not only an author, but she's a healer and, has psychic abilities. And she's had visions about this film and the book that she put together. And so I really relate to Susan And the way that she sees this, because I had the honor of studying spiritual psychology at the University of Santa Monica when I first came to Los Angeles. And so I really see the beauty of the way that he used art to tell his story, from the dark images as they transformed into the lighter images, and
like
the healing
that
that
whole
took
concept,
place. Yes.
the dark to the light,
Yes.
Ed and Tamara. I love that whole concept because this is going to help a lot of folks. Like Steve was saying in the World War II one that he did, to help folks go back and find lost brethren in the battlefield. This is going to help a lot of folks that are having challenges in their lives. I mean, from an inspirational point of view, to be able to go, hey, look at this man was in the darkest of darkness in our modern times. And yet he was able to find the light of inspiration and positivity and live a great and happy and wonderful and terrific, prosperous life. This is a great story of reality.
And a lot of our other military films are about that too, because, when we're looking for lost remains of soldiers and the families that never heard anything and they never got any closure, on their families, like, whatever happened to our uncle or grandfather. And so it's really about healing and closure and healing and transformation.
How does that make you feel when you actually get to experience that in a family that was touched by one of your films?
Well, I mean, I think everybody is on a healing journey right now. Our entire country is on a healing journey. And so, whether you see it, hard and cold in a family that has lost a loved one, or whether you're just struggling, with what's real in life today, with the craziness of the media, everybody's searching for truth and everybody's searching for what's real and what matters. And so that healing journey, everybody's on it to some extent or another, whether they realize it or not. And I just think that when you make a film like this, people may not really wrap their minds around what they see, but I think at a gut level and a soul level, they may actually come out of the film experiencing a lightening of their soul and a little bit of relief. And so that really makes me feel good.
Yeah, helping people get over the tough times in their lives is really important. Any little thing you can do. The type of artwork that I read about him, when he kind of created this realism, they call it a psychological realism.
Psychological realism.
Can you talk a little bit about that,
Sure.
Ed?
His works are in private collections and museums all over the world. Many people didn't know that he was even a Holocaust survivor. So he's one of the masters, one of the survivors of the 40s and 50s, the guys that, he hung out with Picasso and some of the great painters and expatriates that were hanging out in Paris. And so he was part of that era. And then he brought this to Beverly Hills in 49 and then went into the light. Now, the book, and this is what Steve and Tamara, their niche on their production company is against all odds kind of movies. And this is like the masterpiece of against all odds. Whoever knew that this was going to happen and he was going to survive, and then wind up, in Beverly Hills painting the finest families and the cream of American society. And he became part of that society. So his sort of his genre was called psychological realism because it is surreal. And he's had different periods, like Picasso had the blue period.
Right.
So he's had his landscape period, his portraits, and he says portraits are the hardest, most difficult things to be successful
I've
at.
heard artists say that many times. They're very difficult. The human face is very hard.
But you can see how surreal. So you can see him painting a Nazi guard, drawing it. That's in lead pencil, what you're looking at there. So can you imagine the Nazi guard looking back at himself and realizing what a commodity this Jew is, okay? Instead of killing him, we're going to use him. And he made it work for himself. But back to psychological realism, he went through that period. You'll see paintings, some of them look half finished. And you have to sort of visualize it yourself. And Healing, the book, the publisher of this book said no at first when it was presented to him by Susan McGee. And he thought it was just another art book or another.
One of the things.
But then when he found out it was healing, he changed his mind completely. Well, that was the gimmick for this book, that it's a healing. So when you actually look at this book, you go from the depths of depression and horror skeletal remains in concentration camps and piles of skulls and, horrifying to these incredible pictures in Beverly Hills with children and palm trees and, what we all dreamed about when we came to Los Angeles.
Right. And making that transition, Tamara, when you start looking at that transition from this darkness into this light, that transition period, that bridge that the person walks over and starts realizing this other part of his life or her life, that is the interesting part right there. That bridge, that little piece where he goes from here. How does he get here when he's here in this very tragic, the most tragic in modern history, but yet he ends up over here, like Ed was talking about? How does he make that transition? That's going to be an exciting thing in the story.
It's all about finding that tiny flicker of light in the darkness, like the light at the end of the tunnel, and then just nurturing that light and not letting go of it until it becomes brighter and brighter, walking into the light.
And when you first came across this project, I guess you and Steve were working together on this, partners in this project, and the name of the film company is?
Vanilla Fire.
Vanilla Fire. Even the name of your, even the name of your production company, Vanilla Fire,
Right.
is the same thing, really. You've got fire and you got sweet vanilla, right? That transition, it's irony at its best.
Well, it makes you definitely feel like that you're on a divine path.
Didn't
Right.
you come up with that
That's
name
meant to
for
be.
you? Yeah. No, okay.
Cameron is the queen. She came up with that name one day.
Well, I don't know. I mean, kind of like Susan said, she had a vision about this film,
Right.
and I remember when I had gotten a rental car to go on an audition one day, and I was on the freeway, and I remember it was
Lord.
up here, and it came to me, the name, and I got home, and I was like, oh my God, I got the name for our company, and he loved it. And, so you channel things, and they're given to you. They're not from me, but...
It's a matter of you being able to understand that something's happening to you, and you better listen, right?
Right.
You better listen, right?
So this
right?
might not make sense, but I think it means something.
Yeah, so I've done that many times and still haven't made sense to many people.
But it
I've
will
been doing that
someday.
for
Just
years.
keep hanging on.
Oh, I just keep hanging on. I'm Jesse T. I can't help but being me. The Brown Beauty's on duty. What can I tell you? You get me in all my flavors and colors, absolutely. And bringing on board, we've got. I was always taught when I started off in the entertainment business that the old vaudevillian actors they never wanted to follow the animal act, and they never wanted to follow the little boys and girls that would sing and dance, or the little people now they know as, because if you followed them, you were on the way out. You were on the way out the back door in the next week. But so we're saving the little guy right here for towards the end of the show, because I can't follow this. I try to. What's the little guy's name?
His name is Jimmy Chew, and you spell it Chew, because I thought, if I get a dog, he's going to chew up all my shoes. And so Jimmy Chew was born, and he's a multi-talented dog. He sings a little bit.
All right, let's have Jimmy Chew sing.
Kitty.
All right, this is spectacular.
Oh no, dog people, help me! They're taking over. Look, it's performing.
So his record's coming out. So I know that you're a record producer.
Yes.
So he wants to talk to you after the show.
Okay.
Yeah.
You got it, baby. No problem. We'll work out a
All
big
right.
deal, a good deal for you. Maybe a couple of options in there. Oh, you want me to talk to your people? Is
Yeah.
that what you want me to do?
Yeah,
He'll give you his card.
Jimmy just signed us for public relations. So
Oh, geez. Can I take Jimmy home? Maybe he can pay my mortgage payment. Absolutely. Well, it seems like this whole project that you folks are embarking on and have already taken the steps forward. This is like a project of passion, isn't it? For all of you who have come together, a project that like a family project.
well,
in a lot of ways.
we've met Coleman Aaron. We've been in his presence, and it's unforgettable. And that's part of it. Okay. Plus, it's a hell of a great story.
Yeah.
And listen, my goal is we want the Oscar nomination in the best possible way. I mean, it's going to deserve it. Steve was on the short list for Never Surrender, the Ed Ramsey story. Okay.
Yeah.
And he knew because he heard directly from the director of the Academy. So we have a better budget. We have a better ideas, going on location. We're going to do reenactments. That's his world to do this. We're going to be promoting it. We're going to go for the Oscar because that's also what we do. We're retained every year by either supporting actresses or actors or production companies to help get the nomination. And so I know with the team that we have and my 20-year experience doing that with this, we have to get it.
Well, look when you go to Europe, I want to be part of the team. I'll carry the bags. I'll schlep the bags around. I'll be the bag boy, okay? That's all I ask for, all right? Not too bad? Okay, I got that locked down for me. Absolutely.
You're going to knock on the door of a former Latvian SS guard that's
please.
92 years old that carries a knife, and you're going to ask him if he would be our interview for our documentary.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, well, maybe I can show him my
knife.
knife.
That's what we're going to do.
Okay. Maybe I can show him that, and we
There
can
you go.
exchange knife routines together. Thank you very much.
These bastards are doing interviews for other documentaries about how they killed and tortured the Jews.
Yeah, it's a terrible thing how they're trying to monopolize and monetize on something like that. It
See,
really
we don't
is.
want
No,
this
but
visceral thing. This is
No.
and I'll tell you what I'm telling others in the press too, that this is the first Holocaust movie that you leave that you're going to feel good about, as compared to being depressed and having to get a therapist after what you've seen in the horrors.
Yeah.
But this is a good ending, and with a moral, and I'm excited about it.
I like the idea because as I'm thinking here, and I've thought the last couple of days about this, there are a whole lot of young people out there that are millennials, that are 12, 11, 10, 15. My daughter's 26, my son's 22, that really don't know much about the Holocaust except for one page in the history books at school. And what they do know is the atrocities that we have been talking about. But what they don't know is, I can't really say, but good things, but these wonderful things of spirit that lived through this, but the spirit never gives up. One of the things that the Vietnam veterans that were caught and put in the Hanoi Hilton, and their arms were broken and they were tortured, one of the things that they all came out and said, how could you survive that? And they said, all of them had the same kind of story, paraphrasing. They said, because they could not break my honor, my spirit. They could break my bones, break my eyeballs. They could starve me, but they couldn't break my spirit. And that's really, I think, a really poignant point that this is going to show to a lot of people, not seeing the script, not seeing what you guys are doing, but I can visualize that and say, wow, that's exciting. Now, are you going to do some of the music in there? Because I know you sing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'd love to. I would love to do that. I'd love to do, that's what I think is so beautiful about doing this film, because we've done so many military films, and it kind of, a lot of people wanted to be a part of our films, but they didn't have the military connection. But what I think about this film is that, it really opens up a new genre. Like, for example, the art world. A lot of, this is a movie about art. And today in the mail, I just want to show you this beautiful painting that someone from my school sent me. You may want to show that. This is Shishi, and she's from my school, University of Santa Monica. And she had asked me to send her, what am I trying to manifest in my life right now? And so she painted it. So if you could look at that, this is what, this is just a symbolic image of where I'm going with my life right now. So this is what art can do,
It's like an astrological chart, but it's done.
It's
with
like
a painting.
the Fibonacci with some beautiful colors.
Yeah.
And but that's what art does. Is art is kind of like music, and it speaks a universal language. And so whatever, if you're speaking millennial or if you're speaking baby boomer or whatever language you speak, art and music can reach the soul, and it kind of transcends all of those generation gap boundary.
You know what this does for me?
What does it do?
This is me in the middle, right here, and this is Mama T, my wife. This is me in the middle, and this is Mama T, my wife. And I'm trying to get the heck away from her because she's really pissed at me and wants some money and some food, and I'm trying to get away. Oh my God, that's what that is. And
Maze.
But I think this film opens up the door for a lot of. There's so many artists and musicians, and a lot of people can win an Oscar for music in a film.
Right.
I don't know if artists are able to win Oscars so much, but look at all the painting and the art that's going to be able to go into this film.
yeah.
It just opens the door for more people to participate.
We just saw a little piece of his artwork, and that's going to be shown on a major scale now, a huge scale in the film. I imagine that we're going to see renditions of
the music.
and art, and
the music is important,
right?
So we're talking with a lot of people, and
well, you know,
including. Are you going to talk about who you're talking to about the music?
Well, one of the Pointer Sisters was
Steve
in here.
only wants 8 people. We have Richard Dreyfuss or John.
I'll let you take your chair back.
Okay.
Oh no, you can
if you
stay
hold the
there.
dog.
We can fit a couple more
let's
chairs
bump
in
her.
here.
I'm
Close.
Thank you so much for having me on, by the way.
Oh,
Thank you.
absolutely,
She's
absolutely.
beautiful, but how much beauty can one man take? 14 years, apparently.
Well, I'm into 27, so 42 since I was 15.
We've actually been talking to Randy Newman. You know, he's
L.A. I love L.A.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, and he's also Jewish.
Right.
You know, and we're trying to keep. You know, we really would. I mean, best case scenario is that we have a Mel Brooks, that we have a Larry David, that we have
Lord, yes,
you know, somebody,
please.
a Seinfeld. I mean,
Right.
somebody that really.
Have you gone out to those people already?
Well, I have reached out to some of them. I haven't heard back yet.
Come
but
on, David. Come on, Seinfeld. What's wrong with you? Huh?
you know, you
Come
can't
on.
make people have passion for something they don't have passion for.
Right.
It's just that simple. The World War II stuff is the same thing. You know, we've got 88,000 missing from World War II.
Still.
Now, I didn't know that 10 years ago. But when I found out, how can you, if you have the money and the time and the inclination, and I didn't realize, you know, Mr. Losey's, I think you had, what, 4 uncles? That
3. I had my father and his 2 brothers, the Losey brothers. You know, there's a lot of rules in history about having. That's what Saving Private Ryan was all
Right.
about.
The
Not having
the
the
Sullivans.
brothers.
The
Yeah,
Sullivans.
right, yeah.
fought,
but
yeah.
they had the Losey brothers were
Right.
there, and they survived it.
And for me, it's like
They
when
were
somebody.
Wow.
hand-to-hand combat.
And that was how it actually
Yeah.
started, because when he actually put that, that's how it started a couple of years ago. He put up pictures of his brothers, like on Veterans Day, his uncles, on Veterans Day or Memorial Day, I think. And
Yeah.
I said, Ed, I remember I texted you. I said, this would be a great documentary, because I love the world. I have fallen in love with the World War II genre.
I love World War II.
You'll remember Eddie Albert.
I've studied it. For,
I,
what a hero he was.
The way I became a filmmaker is I went by Eddie Albert 20 years ago on a bike ride.
Yeah.
And he was in the Battle of Tarawa.
Yes, he was.
And he and I became great friends, and he was fighting Alzheimer's.
Audie
and-
Murphy.
Right. I mean, Audie was in the European theater, but so Eddie and I became friends, and it would be 10 years later till I met another veteran that was in that battle, and that's how I, you know, my entire filmmaking skills and prowess and journey was completely random, completely by accident, you know, or was it? You know, I don't know. You know, I wasn't going to take that bike ride that particular day, but something told me to go take it. So had I not met Eddie Albert that day, we wouldn't be sitting here. This journey just keeps continuing. But my point was, we need people that are passionate about telling not just the story of the Holocaust, but somebody who's passionate about art, somebody who's
Right.
passionate about spirit, as Tamara would say, somebody who's passionate about making a difference. If we can find that person, and if they happen to be Jewish, that's even better.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, you know, that's what you need.
But
You
I'll
need
take money from a
supporter.
Protestant. I'll
Well,
take
you-
money from a Buddhist. You know, I mean, I'm not proud. You know, wherever it comes from.
Listen, you know, I'll take money too. Absolutely. Tell how people can give up some of their money to get this great project
those of you
done.
with ill-gotten gains, you can contact me at vanillafire.com. Those of you that with good-gotten gains, you can contact me at vanillafire.com. And like I said, more than anything, I don't know who's watching this. Whoever you are, tell people about this story. The more people that know about it, the better. And it's just whether you give us money or not is really not important. What's important is that people know about Coleman Aaron, and they know that if you have troubles today, I don't want to hear about it.
Well, you
I don't
know,
want to hear
look
that your Porsche
Look at-
needs a new rim.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear
Yeah.
that your house needs new aluminum siding. You know, this guy went through 7 death camps. My mind can't comprehend that.
My yard sprinklers aren't working.
And it is amazing, because when you watch Facebook and you look at these millennials and people
Yes.
that they don't have a clue
No.
about, and it's really important that we keep the greatest generation. And you know, Coleman Aaron is part of that greatest generation, as Tom Brokaw, you know, turn
It was the greatest generation.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
The devoutness to cause, the devoutness to honor.
Absolutely.
The understanding of your spirit and taking care of your partner right next to you. All of this was what America became after World War II. The American dream was really born after
Absolutely.
World War II.
Without a
The
doubt.
white picket fence, the Chevy and the apple pie and the yellow house and, living in America suburbs. I mean, that's what we created. The middle class in this country came out of World War II.
Without a doubt.
And made us a great and powerful nation.
Nobody, and listen, I've never been in battle. I've been deployed. I've been in Afghanistan, and I've been behind enemy lines in a very safe camp, but this whole PTSD thing, and I know it's happening, but it's not happening because guys, I think 5 to 8 or 20 vets are killing themselves a day. That's not because they were it's not because they were in battle. It's not, because I know people in the military that are telling me it's for many, many other reasons, because our guys came home from World War II that were in the Battle of the Bulge, and that were in these horrific battles. They didn't kill themselves.
The Civil War veterans had the same issue. Yeah. The Revolutionary War veterans had the same issue. They just called it something different. It's called in our generation PTSD. But the horrors of battle on the psyche and the self is different for everybody, and it's a scarring of your soul that you live with the rest of your life. Vietnam veterans had it. Korean. My father was in Korea. Flew off to Lexington. He even has these things that they had to do in flying off to Lexington.
Is your dad still alive?
Yeah, he's 85.
No kidding. Pilot off the Lexington.
Yeah,
you're my next documentary.
Flew a tanker truck.
Between you and Losey, I'm never gonna get this movie done.
Look I'll just hang out with you. I just don't want to ever do your dishes. Okay.
Yeah, well, I've got somebody for that.
Whoa! I think you're going to be scattered like I was trying to run away from Mama T sometimes.
The funny thing is, what's ironic about it is Tamara is known as Mama T.
That
is really coincidental, because when you said that, I'm like, how does he know that you're Mama T?
Yeah,
but
Mama T. Yeah. Oh, well, hey, right on. I bow down to Mama T.
A lot of synergy here. A lot of synergy.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah.
You want to go on a date?
Well, you're not my type.
Okay, you sure?
Yeah. Well,
I'll wear a red.
If you dye your hair, yeah.
No problem.
Come on, it's
okay.
It's 2017, right?
Yeah, why not,
We're
man?
good.
I don't know what I am sexually,
You're holding the dog, so he's the wife.
I'm trying to figure it out,
That's right.
But that's the fun thing about this. I think your story is going to have a bit of this lightness to it, and it needs to have that.
We're having it right now,
right? And because it wasn't all miserable every day of the week for this man, and you're going to tell this story where he had some moments that were very wonderful in his life.
Well, what I want to do, very much like, it's interesting because I took Return to Tarawa and Tamara can tell you this joke. We're in Whole Foods, and Mel Gibson was in Whole Foods squeezing the melons, and no kidding, kind of intoxicated.
I love Mel Gibson squeezing melons.
I took him over to. Yes. I took him to. Honey, get over here real quick.
We're not going to squeeze any melons there.
No.
We know.
So my point is, I pitched him Return to Tarawa. He ended up doing Hacksaw Ridge, which was almost.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Tamara, tell him the joke.
Okay. So he told me a dirty joke in the produce aisle.
True story.
Okay. Oh,
it's
Mel
a potato
Brooks.
Joke.
No, Mel Gibson.
Okay.
So he looked at me and he said, okay, so Martha said, Myrtle, I don't know about these potatoes. They sure remind me of Howard's balls. And she said, well, why, Martha? And she said, well, Myrtle, because of the size of them or because of the shape of them? And she goes, no, because of the dirt. And dude, that was my Mel Gibson potato joke.
Trying to pitch this guy a noble movie, and Mel's like, he goes, hold on a second. He goes, I want to tell your old lady a joke. And I'm like, can I go down and get you a pack? He goes, yeah, you go down to the garage. You go to the garage. So I go to the garage of Whole Foods. So he's like got Tamara's hand, telling her these dirty jokes. And his assistant was with him. And I gave him this whole package. And he goes, yeah, okay. He goes, do you got a producer? Or I said, I am the producer. You got a director? I'm like, I am the director. You got any money? I'm like, no, you got the money. And he goes, oh, yeah, okay.
I got to go get some Snapple. Yeah. Thank you very much.
But, I mean, that's a true story.
So tell us, where can people jump on board?
VanillaFire.com. Go to VanillaFire.com. Ed, what's your website?
Give your website out.
It's LozziPR.com. LOZZIPR.com.
And you can find all the information there about what's going on, correct?
Oh, gosh, wait, one more website.
Yeah. I have a website. Yeehaw, it's called TammyCashMusic.com.
I love it.
That's the next documentary.
I love it.
All right.
Hot dog. I want to get back to the melons and the balls. Thank you very much. Them sweaty balls.
Yeah, what the sweaty
But what I was
balls,
going to
Alex
say is
Baldwin.
Hacksaw Ridge was a documentary.
Right.
And it was not a very good documentary. I've seen it. In fact, everything I've done is much better.
Yeah.
But it became an unbelievable feature film, and
Yeah,
we
well,
want to
that's
take
what
this
they-
to feature.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us on the Jesse T Show.
Thanks,
I
Jesse.
want you back. I want everybody back as we progress along. You have an open door policy here, okay?
right, sounds
Except it costs you $14.62 at the front. I want the 62 cents.
Got it.
It's very important to me. All right, thank you. Hey, the Jesse T Show, Monday through Friday, right here at 5 o'clock. The Brown Beauty's off duty. See ya! Boom! Baby, sweaty balls, huh?
That's a true story, man.